Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the soundtrack for the 1983 NES game Mario Bros, composed by Yukio Kaneoka. This was originally an arcade game, but it's a classic, so it was ported to the NES shortly afterwards, and eventually ported to a bunch of different consoles over the last 40-ish years. This soundtrack is available through the Nintendo Music app. This is the track listing, and you'll notice here that the whole thing is only a minute long, minute 12 seconds. So basically all of these songs are just sound effects used in the game. Honestly, this whole review is kind of silly, but if Nintendo thinks the game is important enough to give a whole spot on their music app, I will still make a whole video about it. So these are the tracks added to my playlist, only 1 out of 10. The only 2 tracks here that are actually songs are the opening title background music and the bonus round song, 25 seconds there, 8th track. The game's start jingle is actually an arrangement of Mozart, but it's still only 7 seconds, so you don't really get that much. Everything else is only 3 to 4 seconds long each, so there's really no actual songs here. The whole thing is more about sound design than music, and in that context, I guess it's pretty much fine. I'd have no problem hearing these sounds in an arcade setting, but still the title music is really the only track here that I'd actually want to listen to, and even then, it's still only 13 seconds long. But this means that it is also technically my favorite track here, and the bonus round music is not very good. It's just beeping, and yeah, not really that interesting stuff here, which is why I rank this soundtrack the worst of all the Mario soundtracks I've heard so far, and also the worst NES soundtrack I've heard so far. This soundtrack isn't really music, it's just sound design, so all of the later stuff turned out a lot better. At this time, they weren't really focusing on sort of investing in that soundtrack stuff. The songs here are just little sound bites to play in an arcade, so the soundtrack's definitely worse than everything else. Technically, it does take my top spot for Nintendo soundtracks from 1983 because it's the only Nintendo soundtrack I've heard from that year so far. I'll be interested to see if any soundtracks from this era are actually listenable as we move forward. Unsurprisingly, this album doesn't take my top spot overall. That stays with Talking Heads' 1983 album Speaking in Tongues, which is definitely better. So thank you for watching. Shortest video, hopefully, in a while. Next up will be the first Mario platformer for the Game Boy, Super Mario Land, released in 1989. This should be a much more interesting review. Game Boy games always have pretty good soundtracks, so stay tuned for that. And as always, stay minty.